Now we're going to call up Madeleine Lopez, who will take a moment to introduce herself. And then, since her talk is perfectly timed to 7 minutes, we'll be in great shape. I heard this.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out today. I'll keep us on time and move everybody along. I do want to thank Marcy for this opportunity and for the opportunity for the Intercultural Center, where I serve as director, to collaborate on this very important initiative. You can hear me? Mike? No mic? All right. I look forward to seeing all of you at the 25th anniversary of the Intercultural Center, which is scheduled for April 28th and 29th. And for the undergrads that are present, the graduate students, staff, and faculty that can stay up late, there is a concert, a very big concert slated for April 1st with Jai Wolf. So there's fun. The festival atmosphere will continue, and the 28th and 29th will allow us an opportunity to continue to talk about social justice, interculturalism, race, and ethnicity. I do want to talk today briefly about the 2013 talk, which featured Eliza and Judy Dushku, who are the keynote speakers. Both women spoke of their work with Thrive Gulu, a nonprofit organization based in Gulu, Uganda. And if you don't know where Uganda is, please take a moment at some point today to look at a map, because I am quite surprised how often people do not know how many countries are in Africa. So please let us continue to educate ourselves. Thrive Gulu supports Ugandans in their healing journeys while building self-sufficiency and self-esteem. Established in 2009, Thrive Gulu addresses issues of child soldiers, sex slavery, and other post-conflict concerns in Uganda. In their talks, both Eliza and Judy Dushku highlighted important topics that were covered throughout all of DEIS Impact, and of course that we continue to cover in the present day. The impact of violence, the importance of creativity, mutual respect and understanding, and most importantly, a passion for social justice. The Dushkus weaved their different life experiences seamlessly, but focused on involvement, and really that was the key in their talks. I will show a brief clip of Judy Dushku talking, but Eliza Dushku talked as well, and she's a famous actress. I've watched none of her shows, but that doesn't mean anything because my small children monopolize the TV. But Eliza, when she was talking to the college students, really focusing on social media, she said it matters what you do. And she saw social media as key to building activism, to get the word out, to spread news. Judy Dushku, as a professor, followed her very passionate daughter, but she focused really on the importance of research. And again, she was a professor, and she had been teaching for, at that point, she said 40 years, and she said it's really important to engage, to know. Before you go on into a topic, don't assume you know everything. And so when she was talking, Judy Dushku, she recognized that there were already people that were committed. Those that show up to DEIS Impact, you have a commitment for social justice in a myriad of forms, but you're committed. But she wanted to push us further. She wanted us to engage in a learning process so that we knew why initiatives succeed, why they progress, why they grow. In her case, she was specifically talking about the creation of NGOs, the history and culture of Uganda, and the effects of and healing from trauma. Judy recognized after years in the field and many more doing research and teaching, she still needed to take the time to learn about the specific country, its people, and cultures. Only then would she be able to comprehend the lives of the people she hoped to improve. And this is very key. She really gave agency to the people she was trying to help. She did not go in with a quote-unquote white savior model. She recognized the limitations we all go in as privileged people into certain areas, and how we have to listen, how we have to ask, how we have to engage with the very people that we seek to help. She encouraged all of us to put aside our assumptions and judgment. And then she recognized one important point that resonated with me. She said, no matter what you study or how much you study, and remember, she had been doing this for 40 years, she acknowledged that we do not all comprehend the value of human resilience until you see it, or you experienced it. And she said, when you're working with survivors, Dushku had prepared herself to an extent on how one could perceive you could help those with trauma. And so in the clip that I'm showing, 2-minute clip that I'm showing, she talks about Lucy Owl. And that was a young woman who had endured already so much violence that Judy herself had labeled her broken. She saw her as beyond healing. She underestimated the resilience of this young woman at first, and subsequently would come to see how this young woman would flourish, how she would grow on to be one of the leaders in their NGOs.
Her name was Lucy Owl. And when Lucy walked into that hotel, you remember, she was pregnant. She actually had gotten married since she was a returned sex slave, child soldier, all those things. She was there pregnant, and she had a little 3-year-old who'd wet her pants that was hanging on her knees. And I remember thinking, as if I knew, well, this one's not going to get healed. She is broken. She is done. She looked so collapsed and so weary of life that I just marked her off as one that was just beyond help. And I focused my attention on others that seemed to have more potential for recovery. But Lucy invited me up to Gulu, and the following year I went to Gulu. And here I want to add one of those other things that's a bit of advice. One of the things I learned, partly from Wanjiku and from others, is that you ask questions of everyone that you think knows anything about what you feel is your area of ignorance, your area of curiosity and confusion. And I must have asked Wanjiku a trillion questions in the few days that I was with her, and Wanjiku also sent us to other experts in the community. We asked and asked and asked. I recommend that. You can call it networking, but I simply believe that you should not be so worried about telling people what you know, but asking of others what their experience has been and what they might share with you. So I asked questions of everyone and went back to Gulu the following year. I actually went myself up to Gulu, and there I met Lucy under a tree, and she had this big group of women. And this was her group called Beads of Hope. And I had on some of my beads, but my glasses were getting caught in it. But those paper beads, that was going to be her profession, was to sell these beads. Well, the market is really quite swamped with paper beads all over the world. But Lucy had gone on to start a school, and she'd gone on to do many other things, and now she works for us. And she has another child. That child that she was pregnant with is named Judith. The other is named Eden, after Eden, who's our dear friend and on our board and has been on more trips than I have. So anyway, we asked a lot of questions, and Lucy was one of our question answerers. She was one of the ones who told us what people needed in Gulu.
So in that short clip, again, Judy reminds us that when we go to do our background work, when we are social activists, to engage, to know the community, to ask questions, to not be assume the all-knowing position, but also to recognize human resilience. And I want to underscore that because a lot of times when we are engaged in works of social activism, we encounter very sad, difficult situations, and we can get stuck, or those individuals can get stuck. But we need to step back and recognize the resilience of the human spirit, as well as the time and energy and background research we should put in as social activists. Thank you.
Madeleine, you remind me of our own work at the Heller School Center for Youth and Communities. We do a lot of work with young people, teenagers. And one of my favorite quotes, which goes in sync with your remarks, is when this young man said, "I don't care what you know until I know that you care." And so I adopted a modified version of a flawed President Clinton policy, and I call it ask, don't tell.